Hi, everyone. I am sitting here with my friend Corb, and we're here with another episode of Know Before You Buy the Things We Love and Hate. Hey, Corb,
Hello,
introduce yourself, please.
I'm Corbb O'Connor, the Director of Accessibility Advocacy at Level Access.
Excellent. And can you give us the too short, did not read, like, you're blind, you have a family, that kind of stuff?
Sure, yeah. So I'm blind. I have a 8-year-old son. Live in Minneapolis, and my pronouns are he, him, and his.
Excellent. An 8-year-old son who's cold and you're not.
That's very true.
That's just not fair. So Corb and I are sitting here at CSUN, and it's been a really good week, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk
We probably should
about
talk about how Dwight is just cuddled right up to me.
yes, yes. For the blind viewers, Dwight decided that he had to absolutely sit in Corb's lap. So we're both sitting here with the handheld mic, and Dwight's standing between us, insisting on it. Dwight is a black lab, fairly small one, and he's just got his head on Corb's stomach almost.
It's great.
Thanks for reminding me, Corb.
Of course.
So tell us a little about your home. Like, is it a house, apartment,
I'm in a
rent, own, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment in uptown Minneapolis.
Excellent. And I'm assuming since it's an apartment, you probably don't have any control over your major appliances.
Sadly, no.
Okay. So let's talk about them. What, if any, do your how well do they work for you as a low vision person?
As a low vision person, I would say that my washer and dryer work pretty well because they are easily, there's a dial that only has, if you spin it around, it's very clear where the needle is pointing. So it's very it's a new machine, but it's kind of old school. And the buttons are black text on a white background, super easy.
Nice.
My stove and microwave, as much as I love dark mode,
Yeah.
it is the faintest of white text on a gray background. And so definitely difficult to see those buttons. But what I've primarily, even though I have some vision, used them as, and non-visually. And so they're, again, pretty easy to label. Bump dots and braille labels. They don't stick super well, but when they do, they work pretty well.
And, I'm so glad you said that because, I've had a couple of people who are totally blind and a couple of people who are low vision. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting to see how different people, do some of the same things. And, it's not if you're blind or not blind, it's what you're most comfortable with. So, another low vision said she uses her phone to magnify things. I find that awkward personally. I'm not, I don't know how to use a phone to magnify. I can't see enough to do it. So,
Sure.
But you're using bump dots, and another totally blind person was using bump dots. It's just, I love seeing how people have to adapt to these things. I wish we didn't have to.
Right.
But it's interesting to see all that. So the contrast on the buttons on the microwave and the stove, you said as well,
Correct.
are not good. So,
Correct.
I mean, that's okay. Have you found that the bump dots on the stove or in the microwave come off occasionally?
They do. So, when I first moved in, I labeled every button. And
Yeah.
one thing I did find is that on my old microwaves that I used to own, I would put braille labels on everything.
Yeah.
And on the, the keypad, it seemed like a good idea to have number 1, number 2, number 3. And what I quickly realized was, I'm not actually reading that closely at that point. And so I had a big bump dot on the 5 and little bump dots on all the other numbers.
Excellent.
And so
Yeah.
they stick a little better than, your typical Dymo tape braille label.
Yeah.
And, when I'm half awake in the morning, they just make a lot of sense. Now, as things have fallen off, I've actually gotten quite lazy. For some reason, the 5 is a very, very sticky number.
Good,
And so
good.
so now I have a bump dot on the 5 and nothing else, but I have this muscle memory of where is my cook power, because my kid insists on sausages in the morning. Which it cooked at 100%, tastes terrible. And where's the start button? It's in the bottom left. And kind of same thing with the stove, right? There's a little recessed and inset region on the stove. And so, I just know that top left corner of that region is bake, and can kind of go with it that way as well.
Yeah, and we do adapt very nicely to stuff like that. I mean, I actually have a commercial microwave, which shipped with Braille on it.
Wow.
So the Braille's not coming off that thing.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, it has about 6 buttons that have no labels whatsoever. But I've been able to, as you said, muscle memory, learn where they are. So, if I want to use defrost is above the 1. I know that. And there are 2 other buttons that I learned I've had the thing for 7 years now. And there's 2 other buttons I just learned, and I guess I don't need them because I forgot what they are. And that's the thing, if you don't use it, you're not going to remember where it is.
Absolutely.
How about the stovetop? Is your stovetop a flat or a coil?
Coil, sadly. But I think what the nice thing is that the thing that I can't ever seem to remember is the outside knobs control the front burners, and so it's just strange to me. I have trouble remembering that. But other than that, right? Push in, turn. 1 o'clock is always high. 11 o'clock is always low. Works great.
How far away from you are the knobs? Are they on the front of the stove or the back?
The back.
The back. So
reach over the boiling water to turn it off.
Exactly. Yeah, and that was one of the things that the girl who was using her phone said, is that if she's got a pot of boiling water on there and she's reaching for those numbers, it's pretty hard.
Yeah, and that's where I think as a low vision user, it's really important to recognize when your vision is maybe what you're used to, but not efficient. And when I think of power tools, probably not safe, right? Power tools are plenty safe for blind people. I think it's for us low vision users who are like, ooh, what's going on here? It's
bringing your face to the chainsaw.
Absolutely, right?
I'm giving you a thumbs up.
Absolutely.
For the camera. So.
And I think of that there are times where, for no good reason, I will try to magnify print, and I say, why don't I just scan this thing? Restaurant menus being one of them. But I think for cooking for sure, learning some alternative techniques and saying, okay, how would I do this if I was a blind person? How would I do this if I'm a low vision user? And maybe find which of those is more efficient for each device and maybe each operation of each device.
Yeah, that would be, it's really key. I really am irritated by some of those living skill centers that insist that, anyone who goes there for basic training has to wear a blindfold, because they're not teaching them how to use their vision. And they get home and they don't want to put the blindfold on. Well, they shouldn't put the blindfold on. And then all of a sudden, I can see that. And they're trying and they're struggling, and they haven't been taught the skills to actually use that vision effectively.
Yeah, I would say my experience, so I went to one of those centers, and I think my experience was, funny enough, I lost vision while I was in training. So I was learning in home management, I was learning how to do things non-visually with a blindfold. And I got home, and how do I cook Campbell's soup? Well, I would always look at the can, and I could read the directions. And I don't know why. Campbell's soup is either, you add water or you don't. But for some reason, I always looked at it.
Yeah.
And I realized one day, I can't read this. And for me, it was a natural segue to go, okay, how did I do this earlier today in home management class? And be able to switch into that. But I agree that it's an important conversation to have, is how do you integrate these skills you're learning when you're in training?
Yeah, and really make it realistic for what you're doing out there. Mm-hmm. So let's get to fun stuff. Do you have any Internet of Things in your home? Do you have stereo, anything like that?
So I have Sonos, which I really enjoy, and I have an Ecobee thermostat.
Excellent.
Which the app just got a major upgrade.
Is it a major good upgrade?
It is a major positive upgrade for low vision users, and I'm told for blind users as well. Now, I'm a geek, so I love Siri shortcuts and love playing with those, and so that's an option. Of course, it can be controlled by Alexa. I just had a conversation the other night with our CEO, and I said, I've been meaning to ask you something for 6 years, and for some reason I've been chicken.
Yeah.
And I said, you mentioned that would people with disabilities would it be tolerable to say, I have an Internet of Things device, let's take this Ecobee thermostat.
Yeah.
It's not super accessible to control it, but you can control it with your phone or you control it with Alexa. Is that a comparable enough alternative? And I think that we probably will fall on different sides of the debate, but he brought up, the manufacturing concerns that I thought were interesting ones of, you're basically, if you don't do that, every device is going to have to be an iPhone inside of it. All the parts. You're going to have to make it speak, you're going to have to make it have all these things.
Yep.
But at the same time, what I brought up to him was, I went for a week without internet a couple of years ago because someone cut a cable in our neighborhood, and I had no control over my thermostat.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that I don't know how I fall on that, but I do sometimes wonder, where is a reasonable place to land when you think about manufacturing and you think about users with disabilities?
So my take on that, and like you said, we probably fall a little bit, you and I are probably closer than I am to your CEO, because my take on it is, you've got to have a way to do it without the mobile device. Because like he said, the mobile device is then gonna have to be built into the thing. That's not actually the case, in that if the person's elderly, they may not want to learn the technology. They may just want to walk up and push a button. When I was doing my project with the washing machine and the manufacturer of the washing machine, the technician showed up and said all the stuff I was pointing out while he was attaching my Braille template. He said all the stuff I was pointing out was stuff that he said somebody who doesn't consider themselves low vision or disabled would have problems with. So, the control panel on this particular device has got horrible contrast issues. And he goes, most people will put their washing machine in a garage, and it's dark and it's really hard to, move around in there, and they can't see those controls.
Yeah.
And it's, the high contrast is key for everyone. You're in a dark place, you got to be able to have it work. The power, you don't want to turn the light on because you don't want to wake the kids up, that kind of thing. It's really key, and that accessibility stuff really helps all of us. The thing that amazes me is that they think having an app gives them an out. And the app, sometimes, most of the time, is very inaccessible. You've got your Ecobee, which is doing really, really well. I've got 3 robot vacuums because, well, I'm a nerd. And 2 of them have horrible apps, and 1 of them has an okay app. So, if they're counting on the app, they got to at least make the app accessible.
I agree with you on that, and I don't think Tim would disagree at all on that.
No, I don't think Tim would either.
I think the thing that where I look at it and go, okay, what's the opportunity? So the Ecobee is a flat touchscreen surface only.
Yep.
And I think there's an opportunity in that device to say, what about the thermostat are you probably wanting to control, and what about it is a primary thing and what's secondary? So in that case, right? Okay, maybe we can just have a simple up-down button. So worst case, you could say, okay, I can at least control, whether my heat is on or off and what temperature.
Yeah.
But I think that, you get into things like, does that mean it has to support all of its vacation mode settings and all of its comfort settings and all of its magic on device when you could do that in an accessible app? Probably not. But I don't think that it would be enough to, for that device, for example, I think it's not quite there yet from a accessibility perspective to say, the app can do everything.
Exactly. That's 100%. We are completely in alignment.
Yeah.
I was speaking to somebody the other day who said, I can turn the machine on and that's all I need to do.
Yeah.
And if that's all you need to do, that's perfectly fine. But, don't call the item accessible, just call it usable.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, one of the other things I think about too when I think of washers and dryers is that so often there are LEDs, lights on the device that for everybody to use.
Yep.
So when you, mine is a Whirlpool and it sings to me,
Yep.
right? So if I ask for a temperature, there's and I'm not great with music, but there's a much lower sound for low than there is for cold, and then as you get warm and to hot, you get a higher pitch. Well, that's fun, right? It's a little gamified.
That's much better than what mine does, because mine plays the do-do-do, and that's the only indication I have. It's
so it'll play a noise when it turns on.
It turns on. It has the capability of making higher and lower notes.
Yeah.
But when I hit any of those, temperature buttons, it's just beep,
Yeah.
beep, beep.
Yeah, and this one is interesting though when you think about the tones are helpful. Maybe not perfect, but they're helpful. But the lighting is usually yellow or green on a white background,
Interesting.
and so that is a really tough thing for a low vision user to see. But when they're blue, strangely enough, which doesn't sound like it's going to be all that different, that can make a big difference for a low vision user in all different kinds of lighting. Blue seems to look and work a lot better. And those are just little things that I think manufacturers don't have the chance to test with enough low vision users because they're focused so much on either not doing accessibility testing or thinking that the accessibility testing is, can a blind person use this?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the low vision users who I think get a little bit of that short piece because it's either assumed you're going to do it like a blind person or you're going to do it like a sighted person. And we get to live in the hybrid.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. So we're coming close to the end of this.
Mm-hmm.
What is the one thing you'd like manufacturers to know? Like if you had a chance to sit in a room with a bunch of manufacturers that are creating machines, what do you want to tell them?
The unboxing experience is an important experience. So I remember when I got an Apple TV and it got shipped to the house, and I was usually the setup guy in our house.
Yeah.
And I came home, and my wife at the time had been able to fully set up the Apple TV because she plugged it in, it turned on, and as it was turning on, she waited long enough, the screen reader popped on and said, "Do you want to use VoiceOver on this?" And I think so often a lot of devices that we unbox, either you get a print manual with an inaccessible PDF online,
Yep.
or you get this manual that tells you to do things visually on the device, or some manuals tell you that this is not recommended to be operated by people with disabilities because it's not safe.
Oh my God, those ones drive me, they drive me over the edge.
Absolutely. And I think, there's an opportunity to say, okay, what about a quick reference guide that's in large print, high contrast, and that there's opportunities like that to say, yes, okay, maybe you are looking for a light to turn a certain color, to do a certain thing, but let's add a sound to it, let's add a haptic to it, let's think of ways that you can connect these things together to make it as an unboxing experience as pleasant as possible.
Yeah, I really love what you're saying there. That's so amazing. I mean, manufacturers who say things like people with disabilities should not use this, it drives me crazy. It completely drives me crazy. Several years ago, we were looking for a coffee roaster. And there was this one...
As you do in California.
Well, as Lucy does. So I was looking for a coffee roaster, and there's this one that looked like it was going to be the perfect one for us.
Yep.
But if we bought it and it was $2,500, there was a no return policy.
Ooh.
And so we emailed the manufacturer and we said, the buttons, we can't tell if they've got any tactile sensation to them. Can you tell us, if you close your eyes, can you feel the buttons on the machine? And the person's like, why'd you ever want to close your eyes? And so, we explained then what the situation was. And they go, oh no, this is a machine that gets very hot. Blind person can't use this. End of story. And it's like, you lost a sale, dude.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just sitting here remarking on, wow, what a neat way to ask that question, Lucy, because so often, right, I write to a manufacturer and say, as a blind person, XYZ.
Yeah.
And I think that to your point, then they can't really answer that question. But if you close your eyes, can you feel these buttons? I think it's just such a great way to ask, and such an unfortunate customer experience you had. But I'm gonna borrow that question because I think it removes a lot of the barriers to the direct answer of the question. Maybe not in your case.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Corbb, this has been a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
And maybe we'll meet again for a longer time.
Would love it.
All right. Thank you for watching today's episode of Know Before You Buy: The Things We Love and Hate. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please be sure to subscribe, click like, and leave me any comments. And join me next time for another episode.